Hey folks, I'm Greg. Welcome back to the next page of Field Notes. Sitting in my stepfather's, our family's bay boat. And I wanted to talk a little bit about not necessarily the frustration of boats, because I know I've done a couple of videos of those. This is actually kind of more of a positive thing about having something like this, a non-specific craft, in this case specifically a bay boat, to fly fish out of on the coast specifically. I guess it could apply to other places, but I'm going to specifically talk about the coast here and the flats, and specifically around this central coast area of Texas. So we have this bay boat, and it was originally purchased, I think, by my stepfather. He's really too old to fish anymore, and which is unfortunate, but he bought this really as a rig to go out and pop and cork shrimp and traditional fish, gear fish in the bays here, on primarily drifting shell reefs and that kind of thing. And it's great for that. But I'm a fly fisherman primarily. And when this boat is running, what I wanted to talk about is, even though it's not the perfect craft, I do miss it when it's not running or not having a boat really. In general, I guess my first point is it's better to have a boat than not have a boat, at least down here. I watch skiffs drive by, and Hell's Bays and Chittams, and yeah, I start drooling for sure. But this is the one that's in the driveway that I have access to. And I've done a few things to sort of make it work for fly fishing. But again, the biggest problems obviously are it's a deep V hole. It's actually, this one runs pretty shallow. It'll go in 10 inches of water. But that's pushing it. And really, I don't like to get under a foot, 18 inches. But again, it's not ideal for fly fishing. It's really hard to pole around, especially in the wind. It's heavy and doesn't go very shallow. So most of the areas here and the type of fly fishing I like to do, and most folks like to do down here, is redfish and sight fishing. And so really you need a platform that's high and that you can look down on the fish with the sun, hopefully, as an advantage, and even someone on a pulling platform to give you some more eyes. None of that's really, it's not impossible with this boat. I have done it. There is a push pole, and you can make it work if you line up the wind. I really, study the map, and if I think the wind's coming from a certain direction, I will set up a drift to where we can kind of comb the shoreline, and obviously not in the shallow bays of the back lakes, but the main bays. You can still do that, especially when the tide's out, and that works okay. It gives you some targets, but not ideal. But it's better than no boat, and let me tell you why. Getting out there and getting access across the bay to certain spots that are inaccessible even by kayakers and folks that are on foot waiting is really invaluable. And when this boat isn't working, I do miss that aspect of it. I would load up the kayak or paddle board, take it over to the barrier islands, and be able to get really, really shallow and anchor the boat out as a mothership. So that was one sort of workaround. Again, not ideal, and it's kind of sucks when you're in there and your boat's anchored out in the bay and you're floating around, and then here comes a couple of skiffs that are just eating your lunch or taking your spots, but that's part of it. And, you know, being on a paddleboard or kayak it's a lot of work. Talked about that in another video. So not being able to fish from the boat is a negative. But again, the positive is at least you're getting over there, at least you're getting out there and you're getting some shots. That would be my summary, really, is that having access to the wrong boat when you're a fly fisherman is better in most cases than no boat. What I'm facing right now is, do I spend any more money on this boat, which doesn't actually even belong to me, and keep it running just to do the things that get me to some of the spots, but really it's still pretty hard to do. So right now I'm kind of wrestling with that. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I tend to, at least this trip, since the boat wasn't working, really focus more on walk in, wade in, kayak launch spots, that kind of thing, and haven't had too much luck. Again, there's another video on that. But I think if I was to be forced to use those locations and I spent more time down here doing that, I probably would get better at it. So I'm wondering now if the boat actually opened up too many opportunities for me and forced me to sort of try everything and not really master any one thing. So something to think about. So if you have access to a boat and you're down on the coast and it's not a fly fishing rig, it's not a skiff, you know, give it some thought. Maybe even if you have an opportunity to take a boat that's not designed for fly fishing and convert it yourself. Good friend of mine over at the Fly Trap, Chris Fowler, has done that with a Boston Whaler, and it's a sweet little rig. And I think it probably even, you know, while it probably doesn't do the super skinny stuff, it does accomplish a lot of the things that I was talking about earlier in this boat, whether getting you to a spot where you can jump out or shuttling craft two different spots around the bay. But that boat actually I think will get a lot shallower than this one, so he probably can fish out of it. And again, I have fished out of this, but it's tough. So just, you know, I guess the real point is fish with what you got. You know, if you're on a river and all you got is a John boat, make it work. It's probably better than standing on the bank. Canoe. Yeah, they're tippy. Probably better than standing on the bank. Call a guide. Better than standing on the bank. Anyway, this is my thoughts for today. Sitting in a boat that doesn't work, but making the best of it. I hope you're having a great day. And once again, if you find this kind of thing informative or it's really just a conversation, let me know in the chat and what you want to hear about. I can ramble on about a lot of different things. So please like and subscribe. I will catch you next time. Thanks for joining me on this page of Field Notes.